Hannity, and we are coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, the site of the Democratic National Convention. Now, tonight, we are awaiting former President Bill Clinton's keynote address to the delegates, and that's just coming up in a few moments. Georgetown law student and Obama supporter Sandra Fluck will take to the stage. But all of that is being overshadowed by a bombshell reversal of the DNC platform as the party has reinserted references to God and Jerusalem. Now, you may recall that earlier this week, delegates approved a platform that blatantly admitted such words, but Fox News has in fact confirmed that the president personally intervened today in order to halt the proceedings and have that language reinstated. However, that task was far from easy because when the convention chair held a voice vote to authorize the amendment, he couldn't seem to win over the two-thirds majority that he needed. Watch this.
All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the... Let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess.
And then you've got to let them do what they're going to do.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, two-thirds have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen.
Now, despite the fact that a clear majority did not vote to approve the change, the Los Angeles mayor went ahead with it anyway, and here's why. Because in his teleprompter, the script was already loaded, ordering him to declare that, quote, in the opinion of the chair, two-thirds having voted in the affirmative, we're going to continue all of this and continue the coverage right here on Hannity tonight. But first, let me welcome the Rev Jesse Jackson of Rainbow Push. Reverend, how are you? Good to see you.
To you, sir.
Will this be the convention that we will now remember as the time that God was neighed and booed by the Democratic Convention?
I think not. What I really think is that Jesus at one point says, Lord, Lord is not the issue. It's not the name God, it's the will of God that's at stake here. And that means that we must focus not just on whether we name God, Allah, Yahweh, Elohim, but we feed the hungry and defend the poor.
All right, but we're not talking about feeding the hungry. What we're talking about is the Democratic Party today booed and booed loudly, and that they had to, and 3 separate times they booed, obviously a majority wanting it to stay the same with God taken out and with Jerusalem being the capital of Israel taken out. Well, I mean, that is a reaction the country has taken note of, Reverend.
Well, I'm not sure why some people would want to focus on the word God versus Allah, or Yahweh, or Elohim. Because at the end of the day, it is not the name God that makes one religious. It's the will of God that makes one religious. And I think that must be what makes...
But we're endowed by our Creator, our founding document. We are endowed by our Creator. It was in the 2008 platform. It was 7 times in the 2004 platform. They purposely took it out. The delegates wanted to keep it out. Well, how should America interpret that?
Maybe it should have been the word Creator in the first place. I've gone to schools where you have 50 different languages and several different religions, and so the issue of a religion and a name can be quite divisive in a multicultural society.
All right, what about the fact that in spite of the overwhelming majority of delegates, going against this, that the chair, after 3 votes, and you could hear the loud no's, why did they go ahead and move forward anyway? Did they not, basically ramming this down their throat whether they wanted it or not?
Well, he had to make a choice, and he finally made the choice.
Against the people?
He couldn't. Well, I'm not sure it was against the opinion. It was a very close vote. I'm not sure it was two-thirds, but
was it close to two-thirds?
Well, given all that's happening in this convention, I think that will not be the determining factor. I think what might determine the outcome is we came in 4 years ago with 8 million jobs down. That's 4 million jobs up. That jobs might determine how people find their...
Reverend, with all due respect, since the time Barack Obama's been president, we have hundreds of thousands fewer Americans working. If you look at the number of Americans working, back when he took office in January 2009 and today, we have fewer Americans working. He said he'd cut the deficit in half, and he gave us $5.4 trillion in new Obama debt.
More people are working and more manufacturers at home. We lost 8 million jobs in 8 years.
No, we didn't.
4 to 8 million. The trajectory was down. We have a net gain of jobs for 36 months.
We have the longest period. If you want to look at the statistics, Reverend, we have the longest period of long-time unemployment that we've had since World War II. I'll give you another.
What drove us in that crisis? Here we were in a surplus, and we made a decision to have 2 wars off budget and cut taxes.
That was in the Bush years.
But having said that, it's connected, and those tax cuts was not linked to lending, not the reinvestment. So you got 2 wars that you paying for on credit and no investment at home. It sunk our economy.
But didn't President Obama, then candidate Obama, say, he said he'd cut the deficit in half. He's given us the largest deficits by far than any president in history. He said he'd create shovel-ready jobs. Fewer Americans are working. So how do you answer the question on the economy? How are we better off than we were 4 years ago?
Well, we're better off if you ask all the workers who had gone out of the back door, who are now working again 3 shifts in Ohio, they would say it's better for them.
But there are fewer working.
But they were completely out of business. If you're going to ask those who have health coverage who didn't have it before, are they better off? They would tend to say yes. If you ask those students who got Pell Grants, otherwise can afford to stay in school, they would say that we are better. If we have 100,000 troops in Iraq for home now,
let me ask you this. When Bill Clinton 4 years ago said that Barack Obama played the race card on him, and the mayor of Los Angeles said about the Republican Party that you can't trot out a face, brown face, or a Spanish surname, and Joe Biden says they're going to put you all back in chains, and Bill Clinton's going to speak here tonight saying Barack Obama not only played the race card against it, but he planned to do it from the very beginning. You hear these racial statements. You've been outspoken on the issue of race in this country. Does that disturb you that the race card has been played and is being played?
Well, I think when you call the president a liar, such an ugly act.
Like George Bush was called.
Well, and it's never right. When you call, see, you're not an American, you are not born here, you're not a Christian, you're not one of us. Those are not so sinless, veiled, cold words. Well, you know what the language is, whether it's used by the birth argument by Trump or the welfare, food stamp business by Gingrich. You know the roll call.
Obama called in July of 2008. He said George Bush was unpatriotic.
I'm not sure what he meant by that.
He said George Bush on the debt is irresponsible and unpatriotic for $4 trillion in 8 years in debt, and he gave us $5.4 trillion in less than 4 years.
Well, I'm not sure that's the definition of a patriot. And sometimes language gets real loose. What I do know is our economy is coming back. I do know our troops have come home. I do know that more Americans have health coverage now. And to me, those arrows are pointed in the right direction. We're
going to hear from Sandra Fluck in a minute. The contraceptive mandate. You're a minister. Should taxpayers pay for contraception and abortion for people that want them on demand?
Sure they should.
Free abortion. The government should pay for abortion.
Well, first of all, it's the woman's right to self-determination. So often, it is a health issue. And to reduce it just to a moral issue and not take into account many social considerations, I think is very limited.
Even Catholic charities, Catholic hospitals should give contraception even though it's against their faith?
Well, we live in the faith, we live under the law. When you're taking government money, we live in a constitution.
It's not freedom of religion. Well, the Constitution talks about freedom of religion.
We live in our faith, whatever our faith may be. We live under the Constitution. We don't live under our Bible. I am strongly committed to our Bible, our biblical writ, but we live fortunately on the Constitution.
All right. Keep hope alive.
Same to you.
All right.